out new topology on top of our blank geometry. So we have a good shape for kind of the shell of part of our mech, but we want to actually draw out the geometry. The topology for this NURBS object isn't really what we want. We want to have kind of an opening here. We want to have a little detail on the front. We want to sort of have it cut off and have an opening for the arms and things like that. And so we can actually draw polygon geometry on top of this. So we get the shape of this, but we get the topology that we want. To do that, we need to make this live. So we need to make it so that we're able to, when we create geometry, it'll be conformed to this shape. To do that, we'll go to Modify, Make Live with that selected. Now the body blank is live. So now what we can do is activate Quad Draw. And we can do that either by going to the Mesh Tools, Quad Draw, or we can go into the Modeling Toolkit right over here. Either way, if you do the Quad Draw options, it'll bring up the Modeling Toolkit. And it's actually down at the bottom of that toolkit. Quad Draw right down here. We'll leave everything as is, and then we'll just take a look at how this works. So now with the left mouse button, if I just click anywhere on this live object, I can add a point. Okay, I can add a few points here. I'm going to add 4, just like that. You can see the points lie on the surface. If I hold down Shift, and then move my mouse over between those points, it gives me a little pre-highlight for a 4-sided polygon face, a quad. So let me click on that, and it'll actually create a quad right on top of that geometry. And so we can come through and just really quickly, using the left mouse button and Shift, add some geometry right where we want it to be. And so I want to have a nice line right around this opening, and so I'll just come in and create that. Let's come in here, and we'll just create kind of a strip. We can go down to the front view and see that those are sort of off a little bit. And so you can see if I move it to be exactly in the right spot, and we can modify our piece here as we go. But this lets us know exactly where that intersection is, and I can move that point just by left-clicking and dragging it. Okay, I can do the same thing over here. You can see, since you can move points that you haven't made polygons from yet, but you can also move them once you've created the polygons. Okay, I'm going to space this out a little bit. Let's put one more right at this intersection, kind of right there. Okay, let's come up to the top, and again we can come in. This time I'm just drawing it from kind of the front view. Okay, kind of right in there, but you can also continue to do it from the perspective. Kind of add one in right in the center. Kind of move it over a little bit. Don't worry if it's not right on the origin, because we'll be able to fix that up as we go. Now I just want to space these out a little so they're nice and clean. And so you can see that this topology doesn't really match with the existing topology, but it's flowing along the correct shape. We can now come down, and let's bring some points down here. And then we'll come in, Shift, clicking all the way down. And we can clean up these lines, but we're just trying to get the right topology in. Okay, so we've got lines coming along the side here. We can start to bring in some points right along there. You can see those match okay with the shape that we've got. Because we're working with a NURBS blank, that's hard to tell because of the curvature where exactly those points are going to lie, but we can modify that once we get the points created. We'll come in here and let's begin to kind of draw up and over. And so we're just kind of defining the shell here. So as we come in here, we can click on one, start to come in and add that. Again, just shift clicking. Can kind of move this around a little bit. Come in here as well. We can start to divide this a little bit more. So if we come in here, maybe create one right there. And then maybe that starts to come up and over. We'll kind of space this out a little bit. We can also use Shift to come in and relax those points. Again, this is live, so it's going to stay constrained to this object. Now you can see here we can start to bridge across there, but at this point we don't have enough lines, so we can do a few things. We can delete. Control Shift will allow us to delete an edge, and we can then we can come in and we have maybe just a couple of edges instead of 3. We can also add new edges. So we come in and we want to use Control. We can add new edges just like that, and then maybe relax those a little bit. We can also go to the front view, space out those lines a little bit more. I'm going to grab edges too and faces. Okay, and then we want to do the same thing here. Start to bring in some points. Again, holding down Shift. Let's add a new edge right in there and start to fill that in. Now coming up and around here, around where the kind of the arm opening will be, we can start to define that. Maybe add a new edge loop in there. And so you just want to make your way around, and we're only working on half of the model, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of keep track of things and not have to worry about kind of the other side at this point. Okay, so use something like that. So let's add another loop right in here. We'll kind of relax this a little bit, and then we'll add one more. And then we can begin to fill this in. And then right in here. And then you can see we've got one right in here where we want to create sort of a corner. So we can do this in a few different ways. We could come in here and kind of fill that in, and then we could fill that triangle in. And just come in and kind of smooth out all those interior pieces. So now we get this very custom topology, but it's made to this very contoured shape. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on from here. In the next lesson, we'll finish this topology up before we add some thickness to it. So let's go ahead and do that next.